Good day, everyone. I'm pleased to present our paper, Exploring Urban Expansion Dynamics in the Baguio-La Trinidad Landscape in the Philippines, a Spatio-Temporal Analysis for Sustainability Planning. Urbanization is a key development issue in the Asia-Pacific, the most rapidly urbanizing region in the world and home to half of the world's megacities. According to the World Urbanization Prospects in 2018, nearly 90% of the projected 2.5 billion increase in urban population between 2018 and 2050 will be concentrated in Asia and Africa. While it drives entrepreneurship, technological and social innovations, and agglomeration-related benefits, urbanization also leads to sustainability challenges. Rising urban populations and increasing resource consumption associated with urbanization enhance pollution and environmental degradation, food and nutrition insecurity, among others. Thus, there's an impetus towards planned urbanization and strengthening urban-rural linkages as embedded in international agreements such as the Sustainable Development Goals. A spatial-temporal analysis of landscape patterns and dynamic change processes through the lens of landscape ecology can provide insights for planning based on changing landscape patterns affecting functions. The need for planned urbanization as declared in the new urban agenda is evident in the case of Benguet, Philippines. The need for studies have shown that Baguio City has already long exceeded its carrying capacity, and initiatives including the establishment of a Metro Baguio has been put forward to address congestion and channel capital flows. The Metro Baguio concept, composed of Baguio City and adjacent municipalities of La Trinidad, Itogon, Sablan, Tuba, and Tublay, emerged for rural-urban development and was conceptualized as the primary development area for the region. Local governments and other sectors have noted the need to ensure that neighboring towns of Baguio will not follow the same urbanization dilemma. This study generally sought to analyze the urban expansion dynamics in the contiguous Baguio-La Trinidad landscape towards sustainability planning. Specifically, it aimed to characterize the spatio-temporal urban extent and expansion in the Baguio-La Trinidad landscape and analyze the relationship between the selected social factors and landscape metrics to urban expansion. This study has the following limitations. It seeks to provide insights in relation to the BIS concept. However, it is limited to only 2 LGU units. Field validation of binary classification was not conducted due to the pandemic restrictions during the conduct of the study. Thus, there may be slight discrepancies in the supervised classification in relation to the resolution of images. The conceptual framework of the study, shown in Figure 1, socioeconomic and political factors as elucidated based on studies are considered as social drivers of urbanization. Based on scientific literature, this includes population size, economic activity, presence of policies such as zoning. Meanwhile, environmental changes such as number of urban patches and patch size, connectivity, and proximity influence urban expansion from diffusion to coalescence. Increasing urban areas lead toward acute urbanization as defined by Young. Figure 2 shows the study area located in Benguet Province in northern Philippines, which is characterized by rugged and sloping terrain and deep valleys. La Trinidad, the provincial capital, is a first-class municipality characterized by an approximately 350-hectare valley surrounded by steep mountains dominated by moderately steep to very steep and gentle terrain. Among the cities and municipalities in the Cordillera Administrative Region, La Trinidad is the most populous place in the 2015 census. Agriculture, which largely supports tourism, trade, and manufacturing industries, still is considered as one of the driving forces of the town's economy. It is a central business district and trading center, transacting and marketing around 85% of total vegetable production in the province. Meanwhile, Baguio City is the only highly urbanized city in the region and plays a major role as a residential town and serves as an education center in the north, regional trade, commerce, and industrial hub and premier tourist destination in the country. In 2016, Baguio City posed the second highest population density in the Cordillera region. Landscape analysis was done using the following methods. Landsat images for 1988, 2010, 2020 were utilized. Binary classification of areas into non-urban and urban was conducted through supervised classification. Classification was based on the consideration that urban lands are those dominated by built environment or occupy greater than 50% of a pixel, which includes all non-vegetative human-constructed elements such as roads, buildings, etc. The absence of ground survey for validation, the researcher based the classification on prior knowledge about the study area. The changes in land classification based on the generated maps were quantified using FragStats 4.2. PragStat results were qualitatively compared to changes in the selected social factors mentioned in the conceptual framework based on a review of secondary socioeconomic and policy data in the study area. 7 class level metrics were used based on the following justifications. Both class area and percent of landscape show dominance of one type or class. Number of patches indicates the landscape is highly fragmented if it is too high. Mean patch area was used in relation to the mean patch size. If MPS is small, it indicates a fragmented landscape. Landscape patch index was used as a metric for characterizing landscape composition. Euclidean nearest neighbor distance was used to represent mean nearest neighbor distance, which measure relative distance between patches of the same class and can be used as a surrogate for connectivity. Landscape shape index was used as a measure of complexity, arrangement, and proximity together with contagion. Only one landscape level metric was used. Contagion measures the relative aggregation of patches of different classes at the landscape level, and high levels of contact may indicate a potential for disturbance spread. In this study, disturbance is taken to be in the form of urban expansion. The results of supervised classification show urban areas as white pixels and non-urban areas as black pixels. The images for Baguio City from 1988 to 2020 shows an increase in urban areas. An urban core is evident since 1988, with urbanization diffusing outward from the core and from the new urban patches. Continuing diffusion and coalescence of urban patches are evident based on the 2010-2020 images. While the 2010 and 2020 images show minimal variation, increasing coalescence and diffusion of urban areas into non-urban areas is evident in the 2020 image. Similar to the trend in Baguio City, the La Trinidad images show an urban core that is distinct from 1988 to 2020. Diffusion of urbanization from the urban core and new urban patches is evident. Meanwhile, the 2020 image also shows movement toward coalescence of urban patches. The changes in the Baguio City and La Trinidad landscape present patches and patterns of edge expansion type growth as urban expansion occurs around the periphery of initial urban land, as well as infilling of gaps among existing urban patches, leading to coalescence. The results of the landscape analysis based on PragStat support this observation. In terms of composition, the class area and percent of landscape of urban areas in both Baguio City and La Trinidad continues to increase from 1988 to 2020. Although the magnitude of changes was greater or more pronounced from 2010 to 2020 in the case of La Trinidad. Based on the definition by Young, Baguio City and La Trinidad already reached acute urbanization as early as 1988. There are slight differences in Baguio City and La Trinidad in terms of changing landscape configuration, with Baguio City starting off from coalescence towards diffusion and La Trinidad showing more pronounced diffusion at the onset and moving towards greater coalescence. For Baguio City, movement towards coalescence from 1988 to 2010 is evident in the changing NP, area mean, and LPI values. However, towards 2020, diffusion into new non-urban areas suggested in the renewed increase in NP and slight decrease in area mean and LPI. Meanwhile, for La Trinidad, diffusion is more pronounced from 1988 to 2020, as seen in the sudden increase in NP and slight increases in LPI and area mean. From 2010 to 2020, the decrease in NP and sudden increase in LPI and area mean values indicate greater movement toward coalescence. These trends are supported by the values of LCI Euclidean, nearest neighbor mean, and contagion, which indicate fragmentation and connectivity. Both study areas exhibited a general trend of increasing connectivity owing to diffusion from the core and coalescence of urban patches. This is manifested in the increasing contact values, decreasing ENN mean, and general trend of lessening fragmentation in both Baguio City and La Trinidad. Thus, this indicates that connectivity has a positive relationship with urban expansion. In addition, based on the images, the growth and expansion of urban patches, starting from areas closer to the urban core and larger urban patches can be observed. This supports the relationship between proximity and pattern of urban expansion found in some other studies, such as those conducted by Sha and Tian in Phoenix, and as well as Schneider in Western countries. The social factors analyzed in relation to urban expansion is studied where population size, type of dominant economic activity, and land use span as a proxy for policy. Secondary data show increasing population trends in Baguio City and La Trinidad from 1988 to 2020, dominated by school age and working age groups as supported by demographic data, and increase in the number of barangays classified as urban. In migration was high, in both areas, indicating the urban pool of economic activity. This is evident in the socioeconomic profiles, land use and development plans of Baguio City and La Trinidad. Increasing land use for built-up areas such as institutional, commercial, and residential areas, and reductions in agricultural and forest lands are also noted in the land use and development plans. In addition, a declining share of agriculture in employment in La Trinidad is also noted. The key findings are as follows. This study analyzed the spatio-temporal urban expansion dynamics of the Baguio City and La Trinidad landscape. Results show that urbanization is increasing in the Baguio City La Trinidad landscape with acute urbanization evident as early as 1988. Urban expansion in the Baguio-La Trinidad landscape exhibits stages of diffusion coalescence in accordance to the urban growth theory in both areas, with diffusion from an urban core exhibiting outlying and edge-type growth and movement towards coalescence through infilling. In addition, connectivity and proximity to the urban core, represented by specific landscape metrics, have been found to influence urban expansion based on FregStat's analyses. Available secondary data indicate a relationship between social factors and urban expansion. However, further studies need to be conducted to establish this relationship. Based on the current environmental pressures, as also evidenced by the concept of list for resource sharing, the current direction of Baguio City and La Trinidad urbanization needs to be taken into consideration in relation to sustainability planning. As noted in several studies, for example, diversity provides more complexity and extent of natural lands contribute to landscape sustainability. Social factors should also be considered. As also shown, particularly the role of policy in addressing the quality of urbanization. These insights provide a reference towards further studies and planning for urbanization towards sustainability in the Baguio City Trinidad landscape. Here are our references. Thank you very much for listening. You may contact me at this email.